I really think that we have peaks and valleys in life, right? So we'll have peaks of bliss, we'll have peaks of enlightenment, those shining brights that are, or lights that are like, this is it, this is living, this is what your soul has been craving. Hey there everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Paisley, for those of you who do not know me. If you hear a lot of snoring going along, I have my good old Frenchie Cooper here, and then we also have our sweet Puggy down below. All animals are welcome. So today we have a different kind of video. You can come up, you can come up, she's getting needy. We're gonna have a very kind of intimate sit-down talk. I'm going to be as vulnerable as I feel comfortable with sharing my yoga journey. So in a nutshell, this video is going to entail how I started yoga, what made me want to do yoga, how I started teaching, and how I've integrated spirituality and what the deeper meaning of yoga is and what it means to me, because yoga is just everything. Could be whatever you want it to be. I also on my Instagram left an option for you guys to ask me any questions about yoga, spirituality, or anything like that, and so I have a few questions that I can answer at the end, so thank you for asking them. I will get to them at the end. So let's just dive into it, shall we? So I first got into yoga, not even got into yoga, but my first yoga class was my senior year of high school, so in 2015. I have always been a competitive swimmer. I played water polo in high school, and so I was always extremely athletic. I decided to take a yoga class at my local gym that I had a membership to or whatever, and just to see what it was about. I've heard a lot about yoga. This is when in my life, I guess, or in my community, it started to really pique interest, right? Like it was becoming trendy, I guess, in the community around me. So I was like, you know what? I'm into spirituality. I was like kind of into like the whole holistic kind of thing, but not totally knowing what I was doing or anything. Like I was doing tarot cards, but nothing too serious. My emotional support animal. You are so sweet. Dogs just look at you with such love and conviction. It is so beautiful. You have human eyes. You know something. So I decided to take a yoga class at my local gym, just a simple all levels, whatever. It wasn't like a studio or anything, so it didn't have niche classes or particular classes. It was just yoga. I didn't even have a mat. I just strolled up, not really knowing what to expect. I thought we were just gonna stretch. Literally just stretch. I didn't even I don't even know what I expected from yoga, but anyways, so I've talked about this on my Instagram too. So I rolled up to my class, didn't really know what I was doing, so I went to the back corner because I was feeling very self-conscious, right? I didn't go with anyone. I didn't have a buddy to kind of feel any reassurance with. I was by myself, and being 16 by yourself in an unfamiliar setting, in an uncomfortable setting, is a lot. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know. I set up and everything was fine. Everyone was just minding their own business. You know, the older people kind of had their social hour going on, so they were chit-chatting with each other, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like frigid, like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Everyone's gonna know I don't know what I'm doing. Everyone's gonna look at me and be like, why is she here? Blah, blah, blah. This is all those internal limiting beliefs going on in my head right now. That's everything that's trying to get me to get the heck out of that class so I don't have to worry about being judged, right? That's a protective mechanism. I ended up taking the class. I couldn't even touch my toes. I was like so stiff. So I didn't even know how stiff I was. Meanwhile, there was a woman in front of me who was like a beautiful goddess yogi, like doing all the crazy full expression of the poses and just being the competitive person that I am with all my sports background. I was like feeling really like I failed, right? Because I couldn't get into the postures that this woman, who'd probably been practicing for a long time, so I tell myself, no, but seriously, so she's been practicing for a long time. This wasn't her first class, and she was able to deepen into these postures like nobody's business. And I compared myself to that. That was honestly like my first real experience with comparison, and oh my gosh, it was so toxic for me. So I didn't step on my mat for a couple weeks after that. However, with that being said, after the class, I felt so good. I don't know what happened, despite all the limiting beliefs, all of the chitter chatter of the brain that was going into my head saying that I wasn't enough, I wasn't good enough, I was too inflexible, yada yada yada, the list goes on. I still felt pretty incredible. And with all that being said, all the limiting beliefs said, my teacher was very sweet. I identified with her. She was a young, cute, kind of beachy girl, and she was super sweet. Her class was very fiery, so we did a lot of like, it was a kind of like, it wasn't a workout, but you know what I'm talking about if you've taken yoga before. It was like kind of like a vinyasa-y kind of class where it was like 1 breath per movement, so I did get a workout in. However, she was just super sweet, and I never felt like she was judging me at all. I just felt like the yogis around me were judging me, which makes no sense at all because I'm sure that they were just in their own zone. So didn't step on my mat for a few weeks after that incident. And then I was like, you know what, that felt really good, and I really want to deepen and get better with my swimming, right? I mean, I'm so tight. I feel like if I could lengthen and loosen up my body, I can become even faster. I was going about 2 to 3 times a week, so nothing crazy, not like I'm going every day or anything. It was just a simple step. And lo and behold, practice, I don't want to say makes perfect, but it did deepen my body, my connection with swimming, and my breath. So I already had strong lungs from swimming, and I felt like this just strengthened my breath with the intentional breath that we were doing in these yoga classes. I didn't know what the heck the jargon was. I didn't know what was going on. I was still 16, 17 at this time, just not knowing what was up. So fast forward, I keep experimenting with yoga. Then I began to go to a couple of studios around my community just to check things out. And that was a whole other ball game. And I'm talking about not like, oh, I deepened my brain so much more, but the intimidation factor was so much more intense. Man, those studio yogis, they like go in, they're in these beautiful matching sets, or just like beautiful Lululemon, like whatever, with their nice water bottles, their insulated water bottles, and some of them come in packs of 3 or whatever, and they just come in, and if they're going alone, they just set up their mat, they just zone in, and that's just it. That's straight face, no smiling, no anything, just there to freaking like practice. And like meanwhile, they're warming up before the teacher, so you know, like she's putting on her playlist or whatever, the yogis are like already doing headstands and handstands, and I'm just sitting there like, I can do a downward dog finally. You know, like it was so intimidating. And still being that fresh age of 17 where you think everyone's judging you and everyone's looking at you, it was gnarly. And that made me take, oh my gosh, so many steps back from my yoga practice after taking that class. It was a really great class in retrospect. And I know that all of this was in my own head, but again, it pushed me back. And I feel like this is a really common theme with yoga, right? Yoga in the Western world, as much as I love Westernized yoga, I really do. I teach it. I'm into the pretty studios. I'm into the matching yoga sets. I feed into that. I love the fast-paced vinyasa flow classes. However, we miss a point, and that is a completely different story. I'm talking about my journey. I totally lost my train of thought. But that totally derailed. I'm saying that studio class totally derailed my love for yoga, and so I was like feeling extremely defeated, extremely alone, and frankly just not feeling good enough. So after that whole mishap, I started to return back to the classes at my gym, my beautiful, lovely, wholesome gym. The less intimidating classes at my gym. So after that, I started to go into taking a couple of PIO classes. So that was like Pilates and yoga fusion. Now I'm getting into the backstory of how I started to teach yoga. So I started to take these PIO classes, which is, like I said, a Pilates and yoga fusion. And it is definitely a workout. Like, it is not like your pretty stretch and strength. There's a lot of squats, there's jumping, blah, 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 blah. And I loved it. I loved that there were no weights. It was less intimidating. All of the people in the class it was an all women's class, really. I mean, there were a couple of men who would like try it every once in a while, but we never saw them ever again. It was so fun. It was so fun. It was to music, and I really connected with the instructor, who was also a manager at the gym. And I felt like that was my first real experience with feeling so awesome in my own skin. In Payo, it was connected to music, so I feel like my brain really channeled into the music and I was allowed to move and breathe with my body. It was a whole sense of connectedness. And when you're thinking of Payo, you're thinking like, oh, that Beachbody Live, like totally tailored class, like, okay, you really felt connected. And I don't know what it was, but you know what? I did. And that's another point to say that everyone's yoga journey is going to look different. Everyone's journey in life is going to be different, right? Like there's over like what, 8 billion people on this planet, so there's going to be 8 billion different realities in this world. So everyone has a different lens and everyone is growing up with different experiences, yada yada yada. So one's yoga practice, who they feel really connected and grounded and spiritually aware, is going to look completely different to the next. I'm just sharing my experiences. Having that athletic background, I felt really, really connected to this practice of movement and breath and stretching and strengthening and all this stuff. I was like, felt like I was dancing with my breath. It was fantastic. And so I was going like every day that they offered it, which was like, I think it was like Monday through Thursday or something like that, or Monday through Friday, whatever. I was trying to go as often as I can with my school schedule and everything. And with swimming and stuff. And so after I graduated high school, I continued with this because I was just going to the local community college, whatever you want to call it. So I was able to stick with that gym, thank God. Fast forward, I'm like a regular at this class, and the manager, who is also one of the head teachers for Payo, she pulls me aside one day and she's like, hey, were you ever thinking about teaching this? And I was like, oh snap, I mean, I love it so much. And granted, like side note, I'm an extremely extroverted person. I've been told since I was little that I'm very bossy and I like to tell people what to do. But I lead by example, hopefully. She asked me that, and of course the ego lion, that proud, passionate lioness in me was like, stood a little taller, I moved my hair, I was like, oh, me? And of course I was like, yeah, I'm freaking interested to be able to teach this amazing form of movement and get paid? What? At a super awesome gym that I feel extremely comfortable with? She set me up with a training that was like an hour away from where I live. It was like a 1-day, 8-hour training, which if you've done a yoga training, you know that that's like literally nothing. My yoga training was way longer than that, way more intense. Anyways, this was just like a Beachbody Live kind of like corporate-y thing, certification. Great, so happy. So I go to that training, I felt really good. I was very familiar with the movement and everything, but that was my first time getting the chance to articulate it in front of people. And it was scary. Granted, like I said before, I'm trying to say this without having like so much, it's freaking awesome. But I know this in myself to be true, and I feel like I need to step away from shying away from really stepping into my personal power. I know that I'm an effective leader. I know that I'm comfortable in front of people. Like, public speaking is my jam. So it was scary, I was nervous, I was shaking, but I felt so liberated after teaching my like little pseudo class or whatever. And I felt so good, and I got great feedback, and I was like, frick yeah, this is it, this feels good, I love this, I wanna do this. So I go back to the gym, and the manager slash head teacher at Payo was like, okay, like, let's see, you can teach like the warm up of the class. And I'm like, freak yeah. It was so nerve wracking, but I did it and I loved it. And I ended up picking up a class once a week at that gym. So moving on, this opened my spectrum to so many things. I feel like I gained the self-confidence that I needed to deepen my yoga practice. So after doing Payo and being like, wow, I actually can move my body in such a deep way. At this point in time, it's like 2 years from when I first started doing yoga. And I could finally touch my toes, my body was more lengthened and blah, 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 blah. And yes, it took me 2 freaking years. Sometimes I still can't even touch my toes. So that's a whole other thing. Patience is key. I was able to deepen my practice. I was going to more classes consistently and really enjoying how I felt. And I feel so grateful that the teachers that were offered at the gym that I was going to had a very deep connection to yoga. they were weaving very beautiful messages throughout their class, rather than just being like warrior 1, warrior 2, blah, 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 blah. You know, like they were really posing some existential questions as we were moving and breathing and allowing and triggering ourselves to be present. So I'm so grateful for that. I seriously, like, I don't think I would be where I am on my connection to yoga if I were to not be at that gym. And which is really rare at gym yoga classes. Like if you've taken a gym yoga class, it's a completely different caliber than studios. And like I said before, like I shared with my story, it's a different caliber of yoga. So fast forward another year, I traveled RIP because it's 2020 now and no one's traveling. I would go on at least like 2 overseas trips, 2 to 3 overseas trips every single year. I'd mostly be in the summer on my spring break or both or whatever, or in my winter break. Honestly, I was freaking traveling so much. So 2 years ago, I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm really enjoying my yoga practice right now. I'm really loving how I feel movement-wise, spiritually-wise, whatever. I feel really good. So I think that I want to put another tool under my belt and teach yoga. So I was researching around. I was talking to this girl that I was taking a spiritual health class with. She like booked a yoga retreat through this online website, bookyogaretreats.com. This is where you can find like a plethora of yoga schools that are Yoga Alliance certified, yada yada yada, exactly what you want all around the world. So I was looking at this just being like, well shoot, where do I want to go? I already had booked a European Alps hiking trip that year, so I was like, well maybe if I just extend that trip and just go somewhere in Europe or something, maybe. Didn't work out. So I ended up booking a yoga school in Thailand. I've already been to Thailand before, so I was like, you know what, that's comfy. I was in a different part of Thailand that I was in previously, so I was like, you know what, I'm still seeing something new, but I know that there are really deep roots of yoga in Thailand too. It's not India or Bali or anything, but you know what, it's a pretty big tie into yoga and the history of yoga. So Southeast Asia, baby. I decided to book that, and it was a 3-week-long course. Luckily for me, there was only 2 other women in that certification training. I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when I arrived to Thailand after my hiking trip. Literally went from, where was I? I was in France and I flew all the way to Thailand. I know the itinerary does not make sense at all, but that's just what happened. So I ended up in Thailand and I was greeted by my beautiful yogi teacher. She was so sweet, such a little ball of sunshine. And yeah, throughout those 3 weeks, I think that really invited me into the more spiritual side of yoga. At that point in time, I was still ruled by my ego and I'm still, I mean, your ego isn't bad. There's just times where we need to quiet it down and kind of refine it and pull it back. So that ego is that protective mechanism that we have. It's really competitive. It's always just saying that maybe, in my sense, it's like, oh, you could do that better than that person. It's like a comparison thing. You know what I mean? It's a competitive comparison, kind of draws us back when we feel vulnerable and tells us, no, that's scary, let's not do that. So I feel like I was still in that mindset. I refused to use blocks and straps in my practice because I didn't need them. I was a beacon of just yogi goodness and I could just deepen in my posture without any tools. Oh my God, use the fucking props, you guys. Like, this is just a side note. Use those props. You are not weak for using blocks. You are not weak for using yoga straps. You are allowing your body to sing. When you assist yourself with blocks, straps, bolsters, all those good stuff, excuse me, it allows you to deepen in your body more than you could ever imagine. It gives you a little support to help you deepen into postures that you think that you never would be able to get to. And I'd rather start off with my tippy toes and slowly kind of guide myself in with my body rather than trying to do the fullest expression and injure myself. My God, I wish I could have told myself 3 years ago that would be my mindset. Anyways, So with this yoga teacher training, and it was so intimate, there was only 2 other women with me, and the instructor was a woman, and we just got so close with each other and really talked vulnerably about what yoga meant to us, what we were seeking in this training, and just what are we trying to find, right? Like, why do we want to teach? And that really hit me because I never really thought, I was like I said, I was like pretty spiritually connected to yoga. Like, I understood the concept of the breath and the mind and the body connection, and how movement is medicine. And when you invite the breath and the body and the movement to just kind of coexist, it's magical. However, when I was posed with this question, why do you want to teach? I was just like, I want another tool under my belt. Why do you want to teach? That just kind of opened my lens to like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing for myself? Is it just to prove myself that I can do something? Is it because I genuinely love teaching and I love the art of yoga? What were my intentions? And that really made me be humbled and sit down and really explore this entire concept of yoga and what it truly means. Got my certification, it was great. That really allowed me to deepen into my own practice and knowing spiritually what I wanted. After that, I just really knew that there was a way deeper connection to what I was doing. It just reminds me of this quote that I've been reading in this yoga book about the sutras, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, that just really freaking stood out to me. I do truly believe that when we roll our mat out, we're truly seeking something deep, right? Like, maybe you are just looking for the aesthetic of yoga and you want to be that yoga girl that has her Lululemon mat. Nothing wrong with Lululemon mat, they're great. But drinking your green juice, you know, like strolling up to the studio and just being like, yoga. Trust me, I've been there, still in there. I love doing that. I love showing off that I do yoga, but we're missing the point. And so this quote is just so dang good. Man, this is what I really do believe. The massive current interest in yoga confirms that there is a hunger for something more, and a sense that yoga can help us resolve the deeper questions of life. But raised on instant macaroni, we have acquired a taste for fast results and a quick, easy fix. Our Western lens has managed to distort yoga into another mass-marketed fast food experience, lacking any real nourishment. Which is so true. Man, I was even taught that in my teacher training, where it's like, yeah, breathwork is extremely beautiful. However, the average yogi that's coming into your class is gonna be like, yeah, I don't wanna do the breathwork. Give me the crazy vinyasa flow. Which is missing the point. Yes, there's great benefits to vinyasa flow, but there's just something so beautiful about moving your body intuitively, lovingly, and being connected to the present moment. Like, just telling yourself when you step into your practice that nothing else matters but what's going on in your body right now. Letting whatever feelings, thoughts, notions arise in your brain, in your body, whatever you're feeling, like, allow them to be heard. Right? Because this is the human experience. This is happening for a reason. Instead of reacting, invite yourself to respond. Invite yourself to take a step back and be like, whoa, what was that about? Why am I feeling this? What's going on? Where is this coming from? Where is the root cause of this emotion, thought, limiting belief, whatever it is? And let it bubble up. Now that is vulnerability, right? Like, that is gnarly, that's scary, that's uncomfortable. But yoga invites that in, invites that journey to self, right? Yoga is all about returning to home and allowing yourself to move, breathe so lovingly, so deeply. Wow, that was a whole rant. Anyways, that's my thoughts on yoga. Fast forward, after I came home from my teacher training, I started teaching immediately for the gym that I belong to. Then after gaining my voice and my confidence and great feedback and kind of refining what I was doing rather than just teaching me what my teacher was teaching, which she's great, I love it, but I felt like I was being really rigid with my teaching. So I started taking more classes to gain more inspiration, and then I started to reach out to other studios and other gyms. So by this point, fast forward to maybe another year after I started teaching, I was teaching at several different places. I probably was teaching like every single day, at least one class a day at multiple different studios and gyms. And that was great. I feel like at that point, that was allowing me to really refine my practice, really find my voice and find what teaching style resonated with me and what teaching style I felt best with. And with all that being said, I was meeting so many new people and getting so many new insights. And I feel like since I put myself out there, I was able to curate a class that truly, I don't know, maybe resonated with a whole bunch of people. And I started to lead my class. I was like, whoa, like what would my 17-year-old self feel like in my class, right? That like kind of scared, nervous, self-conscious young woman. What would she feel like in my class? And I always try to cater my class to everyone. I'm taking an accessibility training of yoga super soon, so that's going to be with implementing chairs and everything, so it's truly and completely accessible to all. However, that's another story, but for the average Joe, I want it to be accessible and loving and open to everyone. Recently, this past March to April? Wait, whoa. April, May, June, July. March to April. Oh my God. Hi. Somewhere in the realm of quarantine 2020, whatever. Well, it was before quarantine. I was living in New Zealand, and honestly, I could talk about this in another video. Wow, there was a lot of things that were happening, but I honestly was just not in a healthy mindset personally. Like I was just like kind of depressed, ridden with anxiety. So many things in myself were happening and arising, and I didn't really know what was going on or how to deal with them. Thankfully, I was living with an extremely supportive partner who is my partner today, and I'm so grateful for him. Anyways, I was living with him, and he was always just wanting me to be better, feel better, all this stuff. And I know that that journey at that time was extremely painful for him, seeing me go through that as it was for me. So I knew in that time I was surrounded by a very supportive partner. My family back home was very supportive, and I knew that at that moment I needed to make a change. I was not happy. I was not my vibrant self. Something had to shift. And I knew that whenever I was learning in anything and practicing yoga, I felt my best. So I immediately started looking for 300-hour teacher training. So after you get your baseline 200-hour, which I did in Thailand, I was looking for my 300-hour teacher training so I can, you know, get my 500-hour certification. And so I was looking online at thatbookyogaretreats.com, and I was like, okay, I really would like to go to India because that's like that's like the birthplace of yoga, right? That's where it all began. But then I was like, oh, I'm a little poor because I've been living in New Zealand for a few months and I was unemployed. So thankfully my partner was supporting me, but I was like, okay, I can't go out of this country. Like I need to do something here. Thankfully I found a teacher training program for 300 hours that was in New Zealand. It was only like 3 weeks out, and so I emailed them right away. I was like, hey, do you have any spots left? Like I really would like to join. I really need this practice. And they emailed me back saying like, oh, they didn't have any spots left in the house, blah, 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 but you can get an Airbnb and of course come to all the classes and basically live there but just not sleep there. And so I was like, okay, I'll look around, and like it just was not aligning. Like the Airbnbs were just like not okay. It just like seemed like too expensive. Like I was trying too hard for this, and I'm like, okay, you know what? If it's meant to be, it'll be. And a week later, they emailed me saying that one of their yogis couldn't get their visa to go through. I'm very sorry to that yogi because his experience was incredible. However, I was so grateful for that. So I was able to join them in the training. And oh my God, this is where I found myself. I do not say that lightly. I say that with such conviction and confidence. Like my teachers there, first of all, it was a couple, Jolene and Steve, if you're watching this, I love you so much. You changed my life. I'm getting emotional. And if they're watching this, they're like, this darn American, she's so sensitive. I swear I cried so much on that training. Literally anytime they asked me like a personal question, I was like, ah! So, oh man, but that's okay. We need to feel our feelings. So this teacher training was a month long, And it was really centered around the deeper parts of yoga. We went over some of the sutras, we went over personal practice, we went over the history of yoga, breath work. We had a major focus on breath work and meditation, which was amazing. I was that girl that was like, I can't meditate, because like, I mean, what you think of meditation is like, sit still, don't think anything, and just be. You can't move. Can't do anything, can't think of anything, and if you do think of something, you're wrong. You're doing it wrong, you're failing. And it's like, dang, that's freaking scary to step into. And so this training really taught me that along with yoga, meditation can be whatever you'd like. So for me, I found my most effective meditation to be guided meditations. And that's where I really found some deep revelations. This is the teacher training where I learned to love myself. I learned that self-love is everything, and that it's like so true when people say you can't love someone before you love yourself. And I was like, yeah, I get it, for sure, right. No, that is so pivotal, and just self-actualization and self-realization from my own perspective. I mean, like, everyone's journey is going to be different, right? But like, what I truly have come to learn is that my connection and relationship with myself has, I guess, created a lens of how I see and perceive the world. Ever since I did that training and have had a more loving approach to myself, I have felt so much more at peace. So much more at peace. And I'm not saying that since I did that training, I'm like floating and blissful all the time and I'm enlightened, right? I really don't think that we truly reach enlightenment and then that's it, that's the end of the story, and then you're just like floating for the rest of your life. No. I really think that we have peaks and valleys in life, right? So we'll have peaks of bliss, we'll have peaks of enlightenment, those shining brights that are, or lights that are like, this is it, this is living, this is what your soul has been craving. And then we're gonna have our valleys, because that's the human experience, you know? Being human is feeling all of the feelings. When you feel that deep sadness, you can also feel like profound gratitude. You don't have to have one or the other, and they coexist. And that's what makes you human, right? However, when we're in this toxic mindset, we tend to gravitate more towards negativity. And when you shift your mind to more positive, loving, light outlooks, it may shift your perspective slightly. And I know that there's a very big trend of toxic positivity, and that kind of hurt my heart. But I do understand that, right? Like, there's a balance in everything. Give yourself the grace to feel everything. Feel that deep sadness, feel every ache and pain, but also know that life without joy, positivity, enlightenment, love, happiness, gratitude is just surviving. Life is so much richer when you feel that existential, undeniable, unencumbered joy. And I honestly think that yoga has really brought me to that, relationship with myself, that I can get there. And I've experienced that with teaching, with self-practice. Whenever I roll out my mat, when I'm by myself, and this has taken a long time to refine this self-practice, you know, like I've definitely have struggled with getting on myself with self-practice, but whenever I roll out my mat, I just sit there for a moment to ground down, you know, the normal grounding practice, right? You know, my yogis. Grounding down and just allowing myself to be still, acknowledging my body, so on and so forth. And I actively give myself the invitation to move how my body is begging me to. And this invites that deep connection with your mind and your body. When you allow your body to talk to you and notice what feels crunchy, what feels open, what feels a little interesting, that's when you become aware of yourself and when you return back home. And when you move intuitively, at least for myself, this is all my personal experience. When I move intuitively, I ignite this like wonder within me that just seeps out, and it allows me to feel so incredible, so loved, and so accepted. It's profound, and yoga has truly allowed me to do that. So fast forward to now, after my 300-hour teacher training, past COVID, or I mean, there's COVID's still around. I don't want to denounce that. That is still a thing. But with less restrictions and everything, and being able to teach more, I'm teaching at several different outdoor studios, and now we get to move inside. So I'm back at my indoor studio, and I'm teaching online as well. And of course, implementing more yoga videos here. So I have gained such a deep love for this teaching and this practice of self-love, compassion, and spread of joy. And so that's what I really implement in my classes and how I teach. Yeah, I don't know, I think that everyone should feel welcome to yoga, and everyone should invite that into your life, whether it's just literally sitting on your mat for like 5 minutes. That's yoga. You invited yourself to sit still for a few moments. You had that intention that you're like, okay, my body is asking me to do something. I need to feel connected. And you did it. That should never be discounted. There's no right or wrong. There just is, right, with yoga. And I think that we need to throw away this notion that yoga looks like a certain picture. We have all of these expectations with the beautiful aesthetic Instagram and those beautiful yogis who are doing backflips and deepened postures, and that is so beautiful and so incredible, but that's not your journey, right? Everyone's journey is gonna look different, and it's okay if you can't go upside down. Heck, I can't even do a handstand still. I've been trying so hard, and I keep trying, but I never discourage myself. Everyone's body is different. Everyone's life is gonna ebb and flow differently, and everyone's body is going to feel differently. Everyone's mind is going to be different. So I just ask you and invite you to just allow yourself to move intuitively, lovingly, and non-judgmentally, and just see what magic happens. It's there. Connect with that inner light, that inner divinity, right? Namaste literally means the light in me honors and bows to the light within you, because the light within you is also within me. Like, that is so profound. And so when we move and connect like this, we are connecting to that inner divinity. Whatever your inner source is, or source, maybe it's God, the universe, aliens, whatever it is, whatever helps you connect to that, because that's in you. It's not an outside existential source. That source is in you. You have the power to ignite that light and let it shine. And your light matters, and your light is so important. Man, I just went on another tangent. Yoga does that, man. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my phone and we're gonna go through a couple of questions that you asked me on my Instagram about yoga. Alrighty, so I took a screenshot of the questions that were asked on my Instagram. There were about 4 questions. Thanks, guys. I got so excited. Thank you so much for asking me these questions. So the first question is, how did you make it more of a habit and practice? I love yoga, but I always fall off when I start. Man, I understand this. I think that it took years to get a solid self-practice in. And like, I'm not saying that I practice every day. Absolutely not. I do some form of mindful movement or meditation or something every day. However, I don't practice like an hour-long yoga class every single day. Like, that just that's not realistic. For me, at least. It may be realistic for some people, but not for me. Really encourage you to go to classes, like go to live classes or take a YouTube class, because then you're guided and you have someone to not necessarily hold you accountable for, especially in the live classes you do because you paid for that and you're physically having to go there. But it's just so much better when you're stepping back into yoga to really allow the teacher to do the guidance, right? Like, it's hard to guide yourself when you are just starting off with yoga or whatever it is. So I really, really, really encourage you to go to classes. I still go to classes. Like, I would much rather go to a class, decompress, and let the teacher guide me rather than me just like teaching myself essentially. However, I do love that because that's my connection to my divinity. So yes, long story short, I invite you to take some classes, and you can even invite a friend and make it like a fun like friend date. That'll be cool. So what are some easy moves and stretches I can start doing every day? Well, as they say, 5 sun salutations a day keeps the doctor away. Sun salutations are kind of gnarly, but that is a really beautiful way to, I guess, warm up the body and kind of energize the body too. There's so many different sun salutations too. You can Google it, look it up. Yoga by Adrienne's great. Another simple move that you can do is child's pose. I freaking love child's pose if you're looking for rest. If you're looking for kind of a hip opener, a lower back reliever, child's pose is great. So you'll be on your knees, bringing your knees as wide as mat, sink the hips back to the heels, so you're like sitting onto your heels, and let your belly fall in between your thighs, reaching your arms out in front of you. Love it. And then another one I would say is just do a simple forward fold. Like, bring your feet as wide as your hips, bend the knees generously, anteriorly tilt the pelvis, so you're like kind of bringing the pelvis forward, and let yourself spill over the legs. I love to grab opposite elbow with opposite hand, letting the head and neck fall heavy. That allows you to lengthen through the spine. Alrighty, and how do you teach your classes? What is your method? Okay, great. If you've ever taken my live yoga classes before, you know that, you know the gist. I have an oracle card deck that I feel really, truly, spiritually connected with. And so before each class, about an hour before the class, I always ask out loud, what is a lesson that my 5:30 p.m. class needs to learn, or my 9:30 a.m. class needs to learn? And as I'm shuffling, I'm asking this question out loud to the cards. And then I pick a card, and then that's our lesson for the class. And so I weave that lesson throughout our class. I read the card, I read like the little blurb that it says about it at the beginning class when we were grounding down. And whatever lesson it has, I can always tie certain flows to that lesson. And I just make it more of a deeper connection rather than just like moving and breathing our body. Like, there's like a beautiful deeper lesson weaved in and out. And I've been really, really loving that. Like, I only just started doing that since I got back from New Zealand, which has been in May. So it's been a newer kind of teaching method, but I really enjoyed it. And I really do feel like the yogis are enjoying it too. So last question we have is, I'm nervous to do yoga and I don't know where to start. SOS. I feel you. So I'm really happy that this question got brought up because I feel like that's really common, right? It's like how I felt when I was 16, 17 going to my first yoga class, where I just felt so scared. First of all, I just want you to know, no one is gonna judge you. No one is thinking, oh my God, what is that person doing here, right? And if they are, they suck. Just kidding. But they're really not in the right yoga mindset, right? I promise you, no one's looking at you like you don't belong. No one's looking at you like you're weird or anything. Just trust yourself and know that you are doing something beautiful for your body. Another easy thing that if you are intimidated to step into a studio or go to your class for a first time, I would 100% start with YouTube videos, just so you can kind of get the jargon, because it may be overwhelming when you go to a yoga class and you don't even know what like Tadasana is, or downward facing dog, or vinyasa flow, or chaturanga dandasana, like whatever. Like, that sounds like freaking gibberish because it's a different language, most of them. So I honestly would look up like 30 days to yoga challenge or something like that, something very intro that'll guide you to the beginnings of yoga. And so then you're practicing with yourself, you're feeling like, oh, it's all good, I'm just with myself, I have no need to have any expectations or whatever, like no judgment because no one's watching me if you're feeling like that kind of pressure. But yeah. And then after that, I really invite you to take classes, right? Like take those live classes. There is nothing better than moving and breathing with a collective group of people and sharing that just amazing, beautiful, bright energy. Try it out. I really encourage you. Yoga literally changed my life. Like changed my life for the better. And I am so beyond grateful for this practice. If you stuck through the whole class, thanks so much for joining me and listening to me. And I hope that this was any, I guess, insightful or relatable. I don't know. I love yoga so much, and it has invited me to love myself and to get to know myself and return home and really shine my divinity through. Again, I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And I hope you have a beautiful day. I'll see you next time.